The sound that wakes me up every morning isn't an alarm anymore. It's a timer. A small electronic beep coming from the kitchen counter, telling me it's time to take my pills. Not time to get up. Not time to start the day. Just time to keep my heart behaving itself for another 24 hours. If you're watching this and you're my age, you already know that sound. It doesn't rush you. It reminds you who's in charge now. My name is Henry. I'm 64. I live alone in a quiet neighborhood outside Cleveland. And most mornings, the first conversation I have isn't with a person. It's with my own body. I swallow the pills dry. I've learned that trick. Water makes it feel official, like I'm admitting something. Then I turn on the TV for noise, not for information. The Weather Channel says the same thing every day anyway. Cold winters. Hot summers. Nothing you can fix. I stand by the window and look at a yard I stopped caring about years ago. There was a time when mornings meant something else. Inventory lists. Phone calls. Unlocking the back door of my restaurant before sunrise. I used to complain about being tired back then. Funny how tired changes shape. My phone rings while the TV talks to no one. It's my son. He always starts the same way. Hey Dad, just checking in. He asks how I slept, if I've eaten, if I've been outside lately. They sound like normal questions until you realize they're measurements. He's checking that I'm still functioning. I answer with jokes, half-truths. I tell him I'm fine, because that's what fathers are supposed to say. There's a pause before he hangs up. Not long. Just long enough for me to know he's thinking about things I don't want to talk about. Later that morning, I'm sitting across from my cardiologist. He doesn't joke. He doesn't soften it. He looks at my chart and tells me my heart doesn't care how independent I used to be. He says isolation is a risk factor now. Not loneliness. Isolation. He says it like it's already happening. Then he slides a pamphlet across the desk. An active cruise for adults 60 plus. Walking decks. Group activities. Medical staff on board. He tells me movement and people might do more for me than another adjustment to my medication. I nod. I'm very good at nodding. That afternoon, my son comes over. Not to visit. To prepare. He lays glossy brochures on the kitchen table. Bright rooms. Smiling older couples. Words like community, care, safety. Assisted living facilities. He says he's not trying to rush me. He says they just want to look. He says if I keep shutting myself in, decisions will have to be made soon. He even mentions scheduling a tour. That's the moment something shifts inside me. I feel like they're packing my life up early. Like my independence has an expiration date they've already circled. I think about my restaurant closing after my heart attack. About my wife dying and how everyone suddenly spoke to me slower. I hear myself thinking, this is how they decide you're done. The cruise comes up again. My son tells me he's already booked it. Short trip. Safe. Something to show I'm still participating. I want to refuse. I want to sit in that refusal and let it prove I still have control. But I can see the other outcome clearly. Say no, and the brochures stop being hypothetical. So I agree. Not because I want to go. Because I don't want to confirm their fears. I make myself a rule. No connections. No emotional risks. I'll go, stay quiet, come back the same man I left as. The first night on board, I stand on the deck, holding a paper cup of something warm I can't taste. My pill case presses against my thigh, inside my pocket. Around me, people laugh like they're surprised to still be here. They lean on the rail and point at the water like it's proof of something. I feel like an extra in someone else's story. A man who boarded late and missed the explanation. The ocean stretches out in front of me, wide and indifferent. And for the first time that day, I wonder if agreeing to this trip was a mistake. Then someone gently bumps my elbow. A woman's voice, calm, not cheerful, not pitying. Just curious. She says, let me guess. Your cardiologist sent you too. Or did you volunteer? The first thing I get wrong is the life jacket. I'm standing in a crowded room on the ship, holding something bright orange that looks simple until it's in my hands. Too many straps. Too many clips. Everyone else seems to know exactly what they're doing. I pull one strap too tight, another too loose, and suddenly I'm sweating like I've been asked to solve a puzzle I missed the instructions for. The man next to me finishes in seconds and gives me a polite nod. Not unkind, just efficient. That kind of competence used to feel normal to me. Now it feels like being left behind. I'm still fumbling when someone steps closer. Here, a woman says, reaching for the strap without hesitation. You're fighting it. Let it sit first. Her hands move confidently, not rushed, not apologetic. She tightens the jacket the way someone does when they've done it 1,000 times before. I notice her fingers before I notice anything else. Steady, practiced, tired in a way I recognize. I spend half my life tightening things that don't want to cooperate, she says. Blood pressure cuffs, gowns, people. I laugh before I think about it. A real laugh. Short, surprised. She smiles, not brightly, not flirtatiously, just enough to acknowledge the moment. I'm Melissa, she says. 50. North Carolina. Henry, I reply. 64. Ohio. She raises an eyebrow. Heart or knees? Heart, I say. Of course, she says, like it makes perfect sense. After the drill, we end up walking out together, not because we plan to, but because neither of us seems in a hurry to be anywhere. The hallway smells faintly of coffee and disinfectant. A familiar combination. We sit at a small table in the cafe, paper cups between us. I notice she rubs the side of her neck when she thinks no one's watching. I notice the faint lines around her eyes, not hidden, just lived in. She notices my pill case when I set it next to my cup without thinking. Morning and night, she asks. Morning, night, and sometimes when I forget I already took them. I say. She nods. No judgment. No pity. We talk about why we're here. Not the polished versions. The real ones. She tells me she's been a nurse for over 30 years. Night shifts. Double shifts. Holidays spent in hallways instead of living rooms. She took care of her husband's mother for years. Fed her. Bathed her. Stayed up with her when no one else could. Then, after all that, her husband left. Said he needed something lighter. Easier. I've always been a strong one, she says, staring into her coffee. For patients. For family. For coworkers. I just never figured out who I was supposed to be strong for after that. I tell her about my son. About the brochures. About the word facility sitting on my kitchen table like a verdict waiting to be read. I don't want to be moved like furniture, I say. Loaded into a place because it's safer for everyone else. She exhales slowly. I get that. We compare aches the way people our age do, half joking, half serious. She shows me the compression stockings she swore she wouldn't pack and packed anyway. I tell her my orthopedic shoes cost more than my first car. We laugh. It feels easy. Too easy. Then she says something that catches me off guard. Everyone on this ship is pretending they're here for fun, she says. But most of us are running from something. Or checking if we still can. That lands harder than it should. Later that evening, I see a sign for live music in one of the lounges. Nothing fancy. Just a small band and a place to sit. I almost ask her if she wants to go. The words reach the edge of my mouth. Then I feel the pill case in my pocket. I think about the rule I made. No connections. No explanations. No becoming something that can be taken away. So I don't ask. I watch her walk toward the lounge alone, blending into the crowd. I tell myself it's safer this way. It is. And somehow, it already feels like a loss. The announcement comes over the ship's speakers while I'm tying my shoes. Tonight, the voice says, cheerful and confident, join us for Second Chance Stories, an open mic evening where guests share a moment they'd change if they could. I freeze with one lace in my hand. If you've lived long enough, you know that phrase is dangerous. Second chance. It sounds inspiring until you realize it usually comes attached to regret. I sit on the edge of the bed and listen as the announcement repeats, listing the time and place, promising a warm audience and a supportive atmosphere. I laugh under my breath. I've heard worse sales pitches all afternoon, The idea follows me around the ship. I try to ignore it, but it's there when I walk the deck, there when I eat, there when I sit alone and watch the water slide past like it doesn't care who's watching. I keep telling myself it's not my problem. I didn't come here to confess anything. I came here to prove I was still functional. But then I think about my son. I think about the way he pauses before hanging up, like he's deciding whether to say something heavier. I think about the brochures on my kitchen table, about the quiet way people start talking for you when they think you won't speak up for yourself anymore. And I realize this isn't about the audience at all. It's about whether I still have a voice when it matters. By the time evening comes, I've already decided. I just haven't admitted it yet. The room is smaller than I expected. Rows of chairs, soft lights, a low stage with a microphone that looks older than it should be. Cameras mounted near the ceiling, small red lights blinking. Not a broadcast, exactly, but close enough to make my stomach tighten. I sit in the back at first. Melissa is a few rows ahead of me. I don't know if she's here for the same reason or just curious. I consider leaving. I consider pretending I never heard the announcement. Then the host invites volunteers to sign up, and before I can stop myself, I'm standing. My hand shakes as I write my name. I notice that I'm the oldest person on the list. That part stings more than I expect. While I wait, I rehearse jokes in my head. Safe ones. The kind I've used my whole life to keep things light. Humor has always been my shield. If people laugh, they don't ask follow-up questions. If they laugh, they don't look too closely. When my name is called, the room applauds politely. I walk up the steps slower than I'd like. The microphone smells faintly of metal and disinfectant. I grip it like it might slip away. I start with a joke. Of course I do. Something about being the wrong age for second chances, getting a few chuckles. Then I talk about my restaurant. How I proposed to my wife, half-jokingly, because I was terrified she'd say no. How I spent years pretending everything was under control, while my chest sent warning signs I ignored. The words come easier than I expect. I talk about the heart attack, how it happened in the middle of dinner service, how my first thought wasn't fear but embarrassment. I talk about waking up in the hospital and realizing strength had quietly changed its definition. I mention my son, the brochures, the word facility. I say it out loud, and it feels heavier than it did in my kitchen. I admit that I joke with him because it's easier than saying I'm scared of becoming a schedule instead of a person. The room is quiet when I finish. Then applause. Warm. Appreciative. Someone says, "That took courage." The host nods and offers a neat little takeaway about honesty and living fully. The lights feel brighter than before. As I walk back to my seat, I notice the cameras again. I notice a man lifting his phone. I catch a glimpse of myself on a screen near the wall, frozen in a frame I didn't ask to create. I search for Melissa's face. She isn't smiling. She's watching carefully, like she's trying to understand something. And suddenly, the applause feels wrong. I sit down, but I don't stay. The room feels too open, too exposed. I tell myself this is what I wanted, proof I could still stand up and speak. But all I feel is stripped bare. Like I handed something private to people who didn't know what it cost. I leave early, slipping out before anyone could stop me. Back in my cabin, I close the door and lean against it, breathing slowly until my heart settles. I decide right there that this is exactly why I made my rule. No more sharing. No more chances. I will finish this cruise the way I planned. Quietly. Alone. Safe from being seen again. I started waking up before the ship did. Not because I felt energetic, because it was easier to disappear when everyone else was asleep. At 4:47 a.m., the hallways were quiet, the carpet swallowing my footsteps. And the only sound was the ocean pushing against steel like a slow heartbeat. If you've ever tried to avoid someone you didn't mean to hurt, you know the kind of planning that takes. You learn routes. You learn timing. You learn how to look casual while your whole body is braced for a collision. I ate breakfast when the dining room was still half-lit and the eggs looked tired. I walked the deck when the chairs were stacked and the music was off. I sat in the library with a book I didn't read, pretending the words held my attention instead of the fear that Melissa might appear in the aisle beside me. After what happened at the microphone, being seen felt dangerous. Not because anyone booed me. They clapped. They smiled. They said the right things. But I left that room with a strange kind of shame, like I'd taken off my shirt in public without realizing it. And the worst part wasn't the audience. It was the idea that Melissa had seen me exposed and decided I was small, a sad old man trying to be brave. That thought followed me like a shadow, so I stayed ahead of it. 3 days went by like that, quiet victories, careful escapes. Then one evening I turned a corner near the atrium and saw her. She was in white, like half the ship was that night, laughing with a group of passengers under strings of lights. Someone spun her gently in a dance. Someone handed her a drink. She looked like she belonged there. My first reaction was relief. Good, she's fine, she didn't need me. My second reaction was sharper. If she could fit into this cruise without me, then maybe I'd imagined our little conversations meant anything. Maybe I really was just a moment she'd be polite about later, the way you remember a stranger who held the elevator. I stood behind a column and told myself to keep walking. That was the smart move. That was my rule. Instead, I went back to my cabin and sat on the edge of the bed with my shoes still on. The room felt smaller than it had on day one. I opened the drawer where I'd shoved my son's brochures before the trip and pulled them out like they were contraband. Bright rooms. Smiling faces. The word community printed in friendly letters. Care. Safety. The pictures always look clean. They never show the quiet hour after dinner when everyone goes back to their rooms and the TV becomes the loudest voice again. My phone buzzed with a message from my son. How's it going, Dad? You okay? No pressure in the words, but pressure in the timing, like he could sense me shrinking. I stared at the brochures until my eyes stung. Then I did something I hadn't planned to do at all. I opened my phone and searched the facility name on the top page. There was a button, Request Information. Another, Schedule a Visit. Just looking, I told myself. Just being responsible. That's how it starts, dressed up as responsibility. I filled my name, my address, even my son's email. I paused at the last line, the one that asked when I'd like to be contacted. My thumb hovered over submit like it weighed 100 pounds. That was my internal moment right there. Press the button and let the future get decided for me, or close the phone and accept that the fear is still mine to carry. I didn't press it. I didn't close it either. I just sat there suspended, hearing the ocean through the wall and the faint laughter drifting up from the atrium. Then, out in the corridor, I heard Melissa's voice. Not loud, not dramatic, just close enough that it slipped through the door like smoke. She was talking to someone, an older woman, maybe, or a staff counselor. Melissa sounded tired in a different way than before, like the jokes had been used up. I hate when people turn pain into a cute lesson, she said. Hospitals do it all the time. A patient tells the truth, and somebody edits it into a success story. There was a pause, then she added, quieter. That man on stage, Henry. I could tell he wasn't performing. He was surviving. My stomach tightened. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I came on this cruise to see if I can be a person again, she continued. Not the nurse. Not the dependable one. Just me. And I'm terrified I don't know how. The hallway went silent after that. Footsteps fading away. I looked down at my phone. The submit button was still there, waiting like a trapdoor. I closed the screen. Not because I felt brave, because for the first time in days, I felt understood. An hour later, there was a knock on my cabin door. A polite one, not a pounding. I opened it, and there she was, holding a knit cap I recognized, mine. I'd dropped it in the library while pretending to read. I think this belongs to you, she said. Her eyes searched my face the way a nurse checks a monitor. You've been hard to find. I tried to make a joke. Something about being allergic to crowds. The words rose automatically like they always do. Then I saw the faint red line where her glasses usually sat, like she'd worn them too long. I saw the careful way she stood, as if her back hurt, but she wouldn't admit it. And I stopped. Were you mad at me? She asked. After the story's night. Because I didn't laugh. Or because other people did. That question hit the exact place I'd been guarding. I could have taken the easy exit, deny it, shrug, act fine, keep my distance. That was the safe choice. The old choice. Instead I said, I was mad at myself. She didn't speak. She just waited. So I ran, I admitted. Not from them. From the idea that you saw me up there and thought, that's what 64 looks like when it falls apart. For a moment her face softened, not with pity, but recognition. Come on, she said quietly. There's a little bar at the back. It's empty this time of night. We sat where the ship's wake spread behind us like a long white scar on the dark water. I told myself I came here with a rule, no connections. Sitting across from her, I realized the rule wasn't about romance. It was about control. If I didn't care, I couldn't lose anything. Melissa wrapped her hands around her cup. One fear, she said. No jokes. I'm afraid I'll be signed into a place and nobody will ask what I want, I told her. That I'll become a schedule, a room, a responsibility. She nodded slowly. I'm afraid I'll end up taking care of someone again who loves the care more than they love me. Silence settled between us, not awkward, honest. My chest felt tight, but not in the medical way, in the human way. Then she leaned in just a little and said, you don't have to perform for me, Henry. And that was the shift, because I realized I wasn't asking for a miracle. I was being offered something smaller and rarer, a chance to be seen without being handled. I looked out at the dark water and made my choice. I didn't crack a joke. I didn't change the subject. I said, if I disappear again, don't assume I'm fine. Assume I'm scared. She held my gaze like she could handle the truth. Then don't disappear, she said. And for the first time since my heart attack, I felt the future loosen its grip, just a little, like a door that isn't locked after all. I didn't realize the cruise was ending until they handed me a questionnaire with a smile. A single page titled, What will you change after this voyage? As if change was something you could circle and be done with. People around me scribbled quick answers, folded the paper, and went back to vacation mode. I stared at the blank lines and felt my stomach tighten, because I knew what the question was really asking. Henry, are you going to go back to your house and disappear again? That morning the ship was unusually quiet. Port day. Luggage tags. Families lining up with wheeled suitcases, impatient to get back to real life. I'd spent most of my life thinking real life was work. Now real life felt like whatever happened when the noise stopped. I found Melissa on the upper deck where the wind was gentle and the chairs were still damp from the night air. She had 2 paper cups of coffee and a small plastic pill organizer on the table between them. When she saw me, she slid 1 cup toward my side without asking. No speech, just a calm assumption that I belonged there. I sat down and took out my own pill case. It made a soft click on the table. We both glanced at it and almost laughed, then decided not to. Melissa rubbed the side of her neck the way she did when she was thinking. They're doing the surveys, she said, nodding toward the clipboard tucked under my arm. You fill it out? Not yet, I said. Feels like lying either way. She gave a small, tired smile. That's fair. For a minute, we just watched the water. The coastline in the distance looked like a thin promise. Then she turned her cup slowly in her hands and said very plainly, I need to ask you something. And I need a straight answer. My chest tightened, not in the medical way, but in the old way. The way it tightens when you realize a joke won't save you. She met my eyes. That thing you said the other day. About me coming to Ohio. About showing me the restaurant you used to run. Was that just you being nice? Or was it real? There it was. The question that decides what kind of man you are when you don't have youth on your side anymore. I opened my mouth and my old reflex kicked in. I could have shrugged, said something light, it was cruise talk, and kept everything safe. Kept my rule alive. No connections, no risks. And if I did that, I knew what would happen next. I'd go home to Cleveland. I'd let the quiet swallow me. My son would keep checking in with that careful voice. The brochures would reappear. Then one day I'd wake up to another timer and realize the choice had been made for me. That was one future. The other future required me to be honest. It required me to say, I'm scared, and I still want something anyway. To risk looking foolish at 64. To risk disappointment. To risk my heart doing what it does when it feels too much. I looked at Melissa's face, at the patience in her eyes that didn't feel like pity. I set my coffee down carefully, like that would steady me. At first, I said, it was a joke. Her shoulders went still. It was a defense, I added. I've done that my whole life. Make it funny, so no one notices I'm terrified. She waited. No rescuing. No interrupting. I swallowed. But it's not a joke now. I can't promise you a fairy tale, I said. I can't promise I won't have bad days. But I can promise I'm done hiding. And I want to see you again, off this ship in real life. So what does that mean? She asked. It means a plan, not a fantasy. I held up a finger. You come to Cleveland for a few days. No pressure. We talk. If it feels wrong, we say so. A second finger. Then, later, I come to North Carolina. I meet the real you, not the nurse version. A third. And if it gets hard, we don't disappear. We say what's true. Melissa stared at my hand. That sounds terrifying, she said. It is, I admitted. But so is being filed away. Then she surprised me. If I do this, she said, I'll have to change my life. I take extra night shifts because it keeps me busy. When I'm home, it's quiet. And quiet makes me feel pointless. I nodded. I understood that kind of quiet. Melissa watched me for a long moment, then tapped the pill organizer. You know what scares me, she said. Not being alone. I can handle alone. What scares me is ending up with someone who likes me best when I'm useful. I felt that land in my ribs. My fear is simpler, I told her. That one day my son will call and I won't answer. And the next call won't be to me. It'll be to a place. She didn't flinch. Then answer now, right then, she said. I picked up the questionnaire. My hand shook a little as I wrote. Not the polite stuff. Not exercise more. I wrote one sentence. I will stop making my life easier for everyone except me. Then I folded the page and slid it into my pocket, like a promise I wasn't sure I deserved. I'd have to say no to some of it, she continued. Let people be annoyed. I don't know if I'm good at that. You don't have to be good at it, I said. You just have to try. When we finally stood up, she touched my forearm lightly, just a steadying contact. Okay, she said. Cleveland. A few days. We'll call it a test run. The last time I saw the ship, it was from the dock, shrinking behind us. I didn't wave. I just stood beside Melissa and felt something unfamiliar, not romance, but responsibility for my own life. A few months later, on a gray Cleveland afternoon, I stood in a community center kitchen wearing a cheap apron that said volunteer. I was chopping onions for soup while older men teased each other and complained about their joints like it was a contest. Melissa was in the corner with a blood pressure cuff, showing a woman how to breathe through the reading. No white coat. No badge. Just her, present. My son walked in and looked around like he didn't recognize the scene. He saw me moving with purpose, laughing at a joke I didn't force. For a second, he just stared. Instead of talking about facilities, he came closer and said quietly, "Thank you." For what? I asked. For coming back, he said. For being here. If you're watching this and you're my age or older, here's the truth I didn't know until I was forced to learn it. I didn't rescue Melissa, and she didn't rescue me. Nobody gets saved that cleanly. I just stop hiding. And for a 64-year-old man with a pill timer on his counter, that turned out to be enough to call it a life again.